Welcome to Have It All. I'm Binie Klein, life and leadership coach and speaker, and I help ambitious people create successful careers and lives they actually enjoy. This is the podcast where we talk about it all: career, business, leadership, life, relationships, and what it actually takes to build a successful career and a life you love at the same time without burning out. Let's get into it. Isaac Mizrahi is a world-class award-winning marketing executive who spent his 30-plus year career working with brands such as Coca-Cola, Bell South, Nextel, and Sprint in several different functions covering multiple geographies. Isaac has been a speaker at several multicultural marketing conferences and has been featured in New York Times, San Francisco Chronicle, PBS, Ad Age, Adweek, and other industry publications. Over the past decade, he transitioned from the client side, working with corporations like McDonald's, P&G, PepsiCo, Molson Coors, Wells Fargo, Lilly, and others. Isaac also has a monthly online column on Forbes.com where he writes about multicultural marketing in America for thousands of readers and is the author of Hispanic Market Power, America's Business Growth Engine, a book he released in April 2023. Isaac was born in Rio de Janeiro. He has lived in the U.S. since 1999 and now lives in beautiful Miami with his wife, his two sons, and his dog, Ollie. Isaac, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Binie. Congratulations on your show and pleasure to be here.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, I am so honored to have you here. I've had the privilege of knowing you for a while and all of your expertise. And when I started the show, you were one of the first guests that came to mind, both because of your incredible career and all of the success that you've had, but also I think you have so much to share that my audience would love to hear. So
Thank you.
Let's get into it.
I'll try my best.
Amazing. So let's take it back to Brazil. Growing up in Brazil, what was that like? Did you always know that you wanted to go into marketing? Take us back to the start.
No, I didn't. In Brazil, the educational system is a little bit different from the US. So you have to make a decision on a career when you're either 16, 17, and that's it. You do an equivalent of an SAT and you go to college. You don't have the first 2 years being like a universal curriculum that you can shift, you can change. So there's a lot of pressure. I always loved advertising and marketing, always. I was one of those kids that knew the jingles of every brand from TV, from radio. I collected beautiful ads from magazines and posters. So implicitly, I knew that I wanted to work around creativity. I didn't know exactly in what shape and form. I knew it was not going to be designing anything because I could not draw. But I knew that I was a very creative kid and teenager. So I decided to study economics, which was a little bit of departure. I was a little bit confused and lost on what career to pick. And I think economics allowed me to balance the right and the left sides of the brain. There is something more quantitative and numbers, but also there's a historical, political science, human aspect of an economist. And as an economist, I felt that I could work in financial service, but also in business. And I think that was the right choice. I started my career in marketing using my economics background, doing financial analysis, market share analysis, sales, and then I transitioned to more traditional marketing, brand management, media management. But I always use the quant and quali side of my brain in good balance. So it was not something that I always knew that I was going to pick, but in the end of the day, I picked something that would allow me flexibility. So I can pick different paths, but the foundation was a solid one.
I love that. So it sounds like you had an inkling. You weren't entirely sure. One thing led to the other, but you did have the strategy of I want that flexibility. I don't want this. And that led you to where you are.
Exactly.
Which is amazing. So when we look back, I know in 1999, you left Brazil to come to the U.S. for Coca-Cola.
Yes.
Take us back to that decision. I'm sure that was incredibly uncomfortable making that move.
Absolutely. And surprising. I just got married in 1998. So the invitation came 6 months after I got married to Karina, who you met, my wife. And I didn't expect it. I was very happy, newlywed, little condo, happy at Coca-Cola. I was working there for a little bit over 2 years after transitioning from BAT. And suddenly the invitation came to come to Atlanta to work on the headquarters, working with the Latin America team. And the interesting thing is that they said, it's going to be 3 to 5 years. And afterwards, you come back to Brazil, at Coke, and we give you a bigger position. And I felt that, 3 or 5 years, I don't have kids, talk to my wife. She said, we didn't expect that, but let's go to an adventure. And it's been 27 years. But I remember telling my parents on a Friday night dinner, telling and surprising them, because it was not something that I seeked. It's not something that I raise my hand and say, hey, I want to move to the US, either temporarily or permanently. Of course, as a marketing executive, the US is like a great place. It's the place, right? But it was never something that I said, I want that, either on a temporarily or a definite permanent move. But it happened, and I came to Atlanta. I worked for Coke for many years, and one thing led to another, and I stayed, and I became a green card a holder, and then a permanent resident, and I left Coke, and I moved cities. I went from Atlanta to DC to Miami. It was never planned step by step. I knew I wanted some kind of international career, and I wanted to go a little bit deeper in my studies. I ended up doing my master's here in the US. So, but it was a little bit surprising. Going back to my 28, 29 years old, I never thought that I would be a citizen living in the US, having American kids, having a career in the US. The things that you mentioned in my intro, writing a book, writing a Forbes, I never planned or dreamed about that. Which is good, because sometimes in life it's good to have a plan. Sometimes it's good to have a direction and leave the details of the plan to be figured out as you go. And I know this is something that you like to talk about.
Absolutely.
But that's a little bit my experience. I had a guideline of what I wanted to do with my career. Having international experience would be good. Having managerial positions, senior leadership. I was 28 years old at that time. That's something that I aspired. But the rest, the details, I left to figure out later on.
I love that. I think that's a beautiful middle ground where you have direction and you know what you want, but then you're also open to opportunity.
Yes.
Because that opportunity came knocking at your door, but it didn't come knocking at your door with you relaxing on the couch. You
Yes.
took certain steps to create those opportunities for yourself. And that's where manifestation comes in. We can't manifest and just leave it up to the universe. We then have to go out and do the work to
Baby
create
steps.
those opportunities,
Absolutely.
those baby steps. And you did that,
Absolutely.
which is amazing.
And also you avoid frustration, because when you have everything quote unquote figured out when you're in your 20s or any time of your life, and you say, I want A, B, C, D, whatever variation from the plan creates frustration, because it may give you a sense that you didn't achieve what you wanted to begin with. Now, when you have a direction, and you may have some preferences, but also allows you to have an open mind for things that you didn't know. Because in the end of the day, we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah.
How do you know this is the only path for your fulfillment, either professional or even personal, right? It's a little bit arrogant to say, I have everything figured out. When people come to you and say, I have everything figured out, I have a hard time believing that, because that starts with the assumption that you have seen all the options.
You're so
And the options are infinite, right? And so I like that the idea of having a direction, not having completely being without a plan, like going to the ocean without knowing the direction, but how to get there and the details, a little bit open.
Yeah. You might close yourself off from incredible opportunities if you are so rigid with your plan. I remember when I found life coaching, I thought, oh, this is my thing. But I've always had this idea in the back of my head that there could be many ways. I know my thing is helping people, inspiring people, motivating people, but that could be through speaking. It could be through podcasting. It could be through coaching. So I am always open to the plan changing, and it has already taken many different paths since I decided coaching, but having that direction is so important.
Absolutely, because you started with an outcome. You knew you wanted to help people, to connect with people, help them to be their best versions of themselves. That's the outcome. Everything else is the title. No, it doesn't matter the title. It doesn't matter, is that hybrid? Is that in this place, another place, corporate, working by yourself? These are important details, don't get me wrong, but they are secondary to a higher purpose, a higher vision, which is the outcome that you wanted. And sometimes people are so connected to, I need this title, I need this office, I need this location, and they may miss opportunities that would allow them to be close to the outcome, the vision that they wanted to focus on.
Yeah, it's interesting. As you say that, do you think that your progression, I mean, the incredible success that you've had all the way up to becoming CEO of Alma, do you think that part of that is credited to you not being so attached to any specific title and just, it sounds like, putting one foot in front of the other?
Probably, but I have to say that I have evolved over the years, right? We are different people. Some people would say every single day, right? But definitely in different stages of your life, I think I had to learn to let it go a few of my expectations and desires and dreams and be a little bit more focused on what I just said. Let the universe play a little bit its hand, right? Trust a little bit the process. Trust a little bit that the right opportunities are going to happen. And when they don't happen, maybe you are not ready, because I had opportunities that I wanted so much and I realized maybe I wasn't ready, right? Because I was so focused on the title or the salary or the status. Now that I'm a little bit more experienced, these things are less important to me. And I wish I knew that when I was in my 20s and my early 30s. But of course, I had to experience that by myself. Otherwise, I wouldn't evolve and mature. So yes, a little bit this flexibility allowed me to have less preferences on specifics. So that allows you to observe the options that may be a little bit hidden and the blessings that you have around you and the opportunities that you have around you that you may be blindsided when you are so narrow focused on a few outcomes only.
That makes a lot of sense. And I remember somebody gave me that advice and said, you're going to get the opportunities that you want when you're ready for it. And even if it feels really painful now, there's going to be a time where you're going to get that opportunity, whether it's that podcast booking, that client, that stage, and you're going to be so ready for it. And that totally reframed all of the failures and rejections that I had.
The challenge is, how do you manage that approach, which I think is the right approach, from being completely passive? Right? Yeah. You're just waiting for the phone to ring or the opportunity to knock on your door because you say, whenever it happens, it happens. But I don't think that's how the universe operates, right? You have to put the effort. You have to send the signals. You have to be at least on the right path for the things to happen in your life, personal or professional. So that's a little bit the balance, because when I talked about this discussion with other people, the people say, okay, so whatever happens, happens. So I'm just waiting things to happen, the opportunity to come or the great relationship to arrive in my life. And it doesn't work like that. So it's a little bit tricky because it's a very fine line between expectations and being completely passive, right?
Totally.
How to manage that, that's called life.
It's called life. It's a fine line. It's an art. So what do you think made people trust you more? You were pretty young and you were working with some huge brands and you obviously worked your way up at Alma. So people had to trust you. What do you think it was about you, about what you did, what you thought that made people trust you?
I don't know. You have to ask them. What I heard a lot in my career is that I'm very passionate. And I think that brings an authentic self, right? I'm very authentic, for good or bad, right? So I think that a lot of companies, a lot of people that trust me, that gave me opportunities, that like to partner with me, my clients, my associates, they know that I'm very passionate what I do, that I put the hard work, that I study, that I know what I'm talking about, right? And I have depth on whatever I'm saying from a business standpoint or from a personal relationship. And I think that authentic self shows up in a positive way to some people, not maybe everybody. So I think that's a little bit. When you are authentic, you are passionate about what you do. And when you put the study and you may not be perfect, but you're working hard, people say, hey, I want to hang with this person. I want to do business with him, with this agency. I want to read his articles, his book, and because he's putting the effort and he's not pretending to be someone else. There's another Isaac Mizrahi out there, fashion designer. That's taken. I needed to do something else.
Yeah, you're your own version. And I think that's a great point because I don't think you can fake passion. And your passion and your authenticity shines through, and also honing your craft, like really honing your craft, being great at what you do, I'm sure is what made people trust you.
Fire in the eyes is one of the characteristics that you cannot fake. And when you fake, it's so obvious that you're faking. That's very clear that you don't have it. And that's one of the characteristics that a lot of people, a lot of recruiters, they are looking for an employee, and a lot of people are looking for, a romantic partner, a friend. They want somebody that's passionate about something, mainly in the world that we live nowadays. Yeah. That's why we're becoming so superficial.
Yeah, that humanity is so important. So I want to talk to you about the brands, the big brands that you've worked with.
Yep.
I'm curious if we go back to when you started. I'm sure obviously all of that has become normalized for you. But back then, did you ever have feelings of imposter syndrome? How could I be in this room? Who am I to be advising these companies?
All the
Tell
time.
us about that.
All the time. When I came to the US, I was talking to about that somebody a few days ago. My English was not even close to where it is today, which is not perfect, but I was very self-conscious about my English. I was self-conscious about accent, which, after living in Miami, I don't care anymore because everybody has an accent here. But, writing, remember, this is a time that we didn't have AI, these tools to translate things. So it was very, very clear when you're not from here, right? When you don't know when you put an in versus on or at, like things like that. So everybody that lives outside the US, most people have some basic English. When you live here, you need something a little bit deeper and business environment, right? And I remember that I was in a meeting in Atlanta when I was working at the Coke's headquarters, and I saw a presentation from this brilliant woman. She was a very, very senior marketing executive, like senior VP, somebody respected that I respected and a lot of people respected. And she was from India, right? And she had a very thick accent. And I was looking at that presentation, trying to absorb and understand as much as I could. And I thought, she doesn't care. She's not pretending to be American with an American accent. Probably she's working her best to be understood. Of course, that's the minimum. And somehow she was promoted to the point that she's one of the most senior executives here in the headquarters. And she has a thick accent. And despite of that, people see for who she is, right? Not the accent or the perfect English or the appearance. And that was a very important moment because I remember it was a few months in the US and I was still trying to adapt and to fit. And then I realized, well, they invited me to come here, right? I didn't beg. I didn't even ask, right? It was not even a process that somebody say, hey, you submitted your name. I didn't submit anything. I was invited to come. And there's something probably that they liked about me and I need to keep that. That was a moment that things switched a little bit and I became a little bit more confident. But going back to the imposter syndrome, I felt in every career transition, every single one. Every single change of companies or even change of jobs within the same company, the first few days or weeks, I felt a little bit of imposter syndrome or a regret, like, out of my comfort zone. And that's okay. Those butterflies in your stomach are important and it's okay to feel them. It's normal.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good point. And I think that story is such a good reminder for all of us because all of us have something where we feel like the underdog. Maybe for you it was the accent. For me, it might be not having a lot of corporate experience or a lot of connections or the best schooling. And for someone else, it's something else. So it's a great reminder that you have something unique about you and everybody has a story. And the difference is just that confidence and putting yourself out there, one foot in front of the other.
Yes.
And then that other point that you said is a great point as well because all of us feel that imposter syndrome. I remember somebody told me once, like, nobody knows what they're talking about. Everybody feels uncomfortable. All the people that you look up to, they also experience those doubts. And if we feel those butterflies, that means probably that we're pushing ourselves and growing. And the fact that you feel those butterflies so often probably means that you're constantly pushing yourself past your comfort zone. And that's where growth lives.
And that's the key word. Growth is the main reason. I don't want to be philosophical here, but some people believe that's the reason we are here on this planet.
I agree.
Right? What's the meaning of life? It's about evolution and growth, right? At the personal level, at the soul level, we can apply that to your professional side too. I think, what is the opposite? The opposite is the person that knows everything and cocky and arrogant, because, it's okay to be confident, but if you know everything, there's no space to grow. Beginning with the assumption that if you think that you know everything, you're completely wrong,
Totally.
right? So, yes, growth is opportunity. Leaving room for improvement, it's always opportunity. Not being arrogant and and cocky. Confident is okay, right? But it's a constant growth trajectory, because when the moment that you feel that you're done, which I don't think that moment exists, that's when life throws you a surprise, and here comes AI, here comes a COVID pandemic that reinvented business, here comes a lot of things that you didn't expect, that maybe all these years of experience may be important, but maybe not. Maybe it's an opportunity to reinvent yourself.
Yeah, you're so right. I don't think anybody's ever done, and we should never truly be content, because there's always a next level. But I also don't think that feels the best. Like being content for a little bit, taking a vacation, relaxing, of course that's important. But I think there's a lot of talk now around receiving and leaning back. And I think, yes, to a degree, but if you're constantly just lean back and content, you're missing out on a big richness of life.
Yes. And there's another thing, Binie, that I believe is important, that sometimes we don't pay that much attention, because we may be talking about growth, and some of your viewers and listeners may be thinking, yeah, we're talking about technical growth, right? In my case, I'm a businessman, I'm a marketing person. It's not only about technical aspects. There a personal growth that's happening at the same time in our life. And the business environment is the perfect place for this growth to happen. So you may not be growing all the time at the same level from a technical standpoint, but you're growing as a listener, as a coach, as a mentor. You're growing from other aspects that you need to grow. For instance, there are some people that are not very competitive, that need to understand how to be more competitive in the marketplace. There's opposite type of people, they're highly competitive, that need to be more collaborator over time. These things, independent of the technical skills that you're developing, these are human skills, interaction skills. They're also happening at the same time in your life, right? So the best technical developed advanced professional may not be, and in most cases are not, the most emotional intelligence developed person. So there is always room to grow. I think the point that I'm making is there are always opportunities, either from a technical standpoint, AI, technology, marketing, business, but also from a more introspective perspective. How are you growing as an individual, as a person? So that's something also that over the years I'm trying to balance in my life.
Yeah, that's such a good distinction, because there's a next level. Even if it's not a technical or career, there's a next level to get better in everything, personally, relationships. So can you talk to me a little bit more about the brands, the big brands? I think a lot of us are curious, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, CVS, all of these amazing brands that you've worked with. What's it like behind the scenes? What's happening in those rooms? What might we be surprised by? I'm curious.
Well, first of all, it's a privilege to work with so many brands. In my corporate career, I work with some of them, as you mentioned, Coca-Cola, Sprint, Nextel, and 17 years working as an agency, probably more than 100 different brands between projects, permanent clients, pitches. So you have to get to know some of the brands. I think I love brands. I think a brand distincts itself from a product at an emotional level. A brand is almost a promise of a service, of a performance, of a relationship that you have. And that promise allows brands to stand out, and sometimes to charge even a more premium price, right? So I like the human aspect of a brand, the experiential one, this relationship between brand and individual that goes beyond a transactional one, right? And I think that the brands, they're really, really outstanding out there, are brands that understand that they are a promise, right? They are a story. Besides being an intellectual property or actually a product, right? And the brands that understand who they are at the DNA level, they are better equipped to connect it at a human emotional level. Because in the end of the day, if you don't have that, and if you don't have a product that's significantly different from other products or services, which, let's be very clear, very few products and services are truly differentiated, right?
True.
Whatever you have is what? Compete on price. So the lowest price wins. So you need only scale. So it's got to be something different. And for me, that different is the power of a brand, right? It's what makes product A, product B different, right? There's something behind this that is connected to the human emotion. It's not really rational. There is a lot of great research that talks about how your brain works when it comes to marketing and advertising. But the more we research, we figure out that there is an emotional component.
So true.
There is something that connects at the soul level. That's one of the reasons the agency that I work for is called Alma, means soul in Spanish, right? Because we believe in the power of emotional storytelling to help differentiate the brands. And we need differentiation because another aspect of my business that sometimes we don't talk too much is that a lot of people are bombarded by thousands of stimuli on a daily basis. And advertising and marketing is another one, and sometimes is a distraction, or sometimes people don't even pay attention because it's another stimuli in the thousands that you have nowadays on this always connected world that we live, always on screen world. So some people don't even pay attention to advertising. Some people immediately go and press the skip button, right? Some people pay a premium version of a specific service like Spotify, for instance, not to be interrupted by advertising. So for a lot of our regular people, common people that not work in advertising like me, advertising, it's interruption, right? So hence the need to be meaningful. When you do something on behalf of a brand or of one of my clients, we try to be as meaningful as possible to actually break a little bit this clutter of bombardments of most of the time meaningless messages that you as a consumer, you are exposed on a daily basis.
It's so true.
So going back to your question, I think the brands that know who they are, right, at the essence of what is their promise to their customers, to their clients, to their prospects, are the ones that are significant pleasure to work with because they know who they are. They are authentic. Authenticity doesn't work only at the personal level, as we were talking in the beginning of this chat. It happens also at the brand level.
Simon Sinek talks all about that in Start With Why.
Yeah.
You know, when you were talking about that, that's what you reminded me of. So I guess what I think you're saying is that if a company wants to be able to stand out and or charge more, they need to get great at emotional storytelling and knowing who they are.
I think
Would you agree?
I think in a different order, knowing who they are so they can craft a message that emotional, that works with the brain, but also with the heart.
And I think what's overwhelming about that, and I'm thinking of myself as a small business owner, and probably so many people are watching this, you talk about interruption. And I agree with social media, we're bombarded with ads everywhere and we all start to tune things out. But then we can feel really overwhelmed. Like, what does it mean to interrupt? Do I have to dance or do something weird to get people's attention? What do you think?
If that's your thing, why not? But again, is that your authentic self? I think that's the filter. That's the filter that you actually put ahead of every single video that you post, every single copy that you write. Is this my authentic self? And maybe your authentic self is going to be great for 50 people, not 50,000 people. And that's okay. Because the moment that you say, I'm going to be somebody else because I want to reach 50,000 people, you're not yourself anymore. And you're just another one. Another one that's going to be competing for attention, right? And what is the limit for that? I'd rather be narrow focused to 50 people, but you may build your business in an authentic way, than diluting yourself and just being another one with a podcast or a coaching business that is not offering anything meaningful and relevant. You know what I mean? So there's a say that says, in the world, you have to be yourself because everybody else has already been taken. And I think there is a continuation. Unless you can be Batman. If you can be Batman, be Batman. Right? Be him. But otherwise, you have to be yourself. Yeah. That's the reason you exist, right? Your unique self is offering something to someone, right?
It's a great point. So if the dancing is authentic, do that. But if not, be yourself and really think about what is unique about you.
If that's your personality, if you are a person that your friends know you for being somebody that loves to express yourself by dancing, please go ahead and dance yourself out. If not, you're just faking, right? And by faking, your readers, your viewers, your listeners, at one point they're going to say, who is this person, right? That's not the person that I clicked on. That's not the person that got me. It's going to be transparent. It's going to be naked in front of your audience, that you're not that person that pretended to be on that video.
So true. So true. So what do you think brands or small business owners, what do they get wrong about people that makes marketing more difficult?
It's a good question. I think people are much more sophisticated when they're thinking about brands, products, services, advertising than a lot of marketers they give credit for. And the other thing that I see a lot, which what I mentioned a few minutes ago, a lot of brands, they think that they are very different in the eyes of the consumers, and the consumers don't see the difference that much. When you are in the grocery aisle here, you have a second, if that much time, browsing on the aisle for, a product for your kids, for yourself. Chances are you're going to be buying something that you've been buying for a while because maybe your mom used to buy that product, right? So that decision at the point of sale, or even browsing on this online resources and marketplaces, they are seconds and microseconds. And you have to think about how you differentiate yourselves, right? And differentiation is something that companies, they have sometimes a hard time to think, because they think they're great. They're like babies. My baby is more beautiful than any other baby here. Every mom thinks their babies are the most beautiful babies in the world, and products are brands are babies for corporations. And it's hard to have an honest view and say, are we really that better from the competition? And chances are a lot of brands are not. They are not worse, but they are not just differentiated.
So is being better than your competition, do you think that's the difference between brands that are like here for a second and leave versus the brands that stay and evolve year over year, decade after decade?
Probably one of the reasons. The other reason is that sometimes it's very easy to copy a product or service. It's not really based on intellectual property. So it's a feature that, you think that you're creating today, and tomorrow everybody has the same feature. Everybody's copying the same approach. So it's very hard to have a trademarked intellectual property differentiation like the cell phones, computers have, right? So you see the AI boom. Are the AIs differentiated? It seems that some of them are started to be differentiated, but for the average person, how to pick one from the other, right? How cell phones. So today we have an Apple with an operating system, and you have Android with Samsung and other brands. It seems to have some differentiation, but for other products and categories, it's very hard to highlight the differentiation. And by the way, what can be a valuable differentiation for you is different from me. So it's not an absolute truth that's universal to every set of consumers, right? And that we go to segmentation, to clusters, and trying to understand who is your target, who is your core target, what is important to them, try to create differentiation for them, not for everybody, because sometimes you're not going to be able to please every single consumer because they want different things.
Yeah, that's a great point to think about, because even Apple, like what differentiates them? It could be many different things. So it sounds like for maybe people who are listening who have companies or are part of companies, them thinking about who their core consumer is and what differentiates them, and constantly thinking about how to portray that is very important.
I used to have a professor during my master's in Atlanta at Emory that said in his first marketing class, he said, there are two foundations of my course, which I believe is core for any business from a marketing standpoint: segmentation and positioning. Those are the two pillars. Segmentation by understanding your customer and not try to be everything to everyone. So focus on who you want to sell, who you want to service your business, trying to understand everything about them. Their dreams, aspirations, their behaviors, how they buy, who they buy for, when they buy, everything. Once you understand that, you create a clear positioning for your brand, right? So segmentation and positioning, core pillars of marketing. This was in the 90s. I believe that was true before that, and I think it's true today, and it's going to be true for years and decades to come. A little bit different with technology and other things, but still a little bit the basics of segmentation and positioning.
I love that. Love that. And you don't need a huge budget to be able to do that, I think, with today's
No, nowadays it's easier than ever. I wouldn't say it's easy, because a lot of people think that, it's just a little TikTok video and that's it. Organic media, organic reach, it's very hard to get You have to invest a little bit in these platforms. But still, compared to 20, 30 years ago, an entrepreneur like you or somebody that creates a brand in their own kitchen, right? They still have a higher probability of reaching millions of people with the fragmentation of media compared to 20, 30 years ago, that you probably needed radio, TV, and out-of-home expensive media plans to reach millions of people. Today, you may get lucky and get millions of people with a viral video.
Yeah. But do you think focusing on a viral video is the way?
I think it's one of the ways. There's a very interesting story that I reheard last week about those cups, those cooler cups on Stanley.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if this is true because I don't work with this brand, but this consultant was talking about the moment that that brand Stanley quadruple and more their sales when somebody had a car accident and the car caught fire. And this was a regular person, and they recorded the fire, everything. And the next day or a few hours later, the fire was extinguished, and they went inside the car to recover the belongings of the person, this lady. And when they entered the car, the Stanley Cup was intact, and she picked it up. And there was still ice inside of it after a car fire. I think her husband or fiancé or boyfriend recorded a video and posted on TikTok. Okay. I cannot tell you the repercussion, how many millions of views. And this is organic. This was not paid by the company, right? So you never know. I think when there's a good story, let's go back to narrative, to storytelling. Let's go back to an emotional storytelling, thinking about the emotional arc of this lady, poor lady. She wasn't not hurt, but car accident, the car caught fire. Who knows what was there? Credit card, cell phone, etc. The rescue, and then the surprise, right? That was a very interesting story. Humans love stories. Since the cavemen's painting stories on the wall of the caves until nowadays, passing through novellas and movies, etc. Technology may change, but the human need for interesting stories is still there.
Yeah, so true. The storytelling, and if you have that story, go for it. But you're giving some other really great points to think about to create that long-term brand loyalty. What's your biggest marketing pet peeve?
I have one of them. It's funny when somebody says all the time that they're gonna pivot their plans. I'm okay with pivot plan and changing perspective, but there's some people like to say pivot all the time because they don't know where they want to go, right? So actually, my colleagues, they know that when somebody uses a lot this word, we're gonna have to pivot here, pivot there. Inside of me, I'm smiling. I'm already thinking, I think this person doesn't know where he or she is going with their brands and their business. The other thing is like this idea of one size fits all. In my industry, we call this total market. This idea that you can have an idea, a creative idea that's going to be accepted and valued by 300 million plus in the US or in the world, something like that, right? Like going back to my passion about segmentation, I think this goes against the idea that specific groups of people, women, men, age group, income, geography, ethnic background, they may see a product or service differently. And also they may react to a different storytelling. Because I can tell you a joke in Portuguese and translate to English and may not find funny because this is where I come from, right? So the narrative, the storytelling, the emotional connection may vary according to different clusters of people, of humans. So this idea of one size fits all, that you're going to have one message and only one, and everybody's going to love, may be a very efficient message from a budget standpoint, from a production standpoint, but may not be the most effective message from a results standpoint. So one of my biggest pet peeves when it comes to marketing advertising is also this idea that one size fits all. It's the best way for brands and advertising. I'm a true believer in the power of segmentation.
I love that. So switching gears to leadership, You went from being really talented at what you do to then becoming a leader. And I think a lot of times in companies, we have people who are really talented at what they do, and then they get promoted.
Yes.
And then often they're missing those key leadership skills.
Yes.
So what do you think is the difference between just being talented at what you do and influencing people?
Well, if I may, I would say leading people than influencing.
Yeah.
Leading people is about is a selfless way to lead. Right? You're leading through others. You're developing the talent inside others to achieve the results. It's not about yourself anymore, and that's a big transformation, because when you are technically good at what you do, right, and you get the promotions and the recognitions, and one day your boss comes to you and say, "Great, you're going to manage a team now." The reasons why you evolved in your career until that point are not about leadership. They are reasons associated with your technical skills. It may be a little bit of leadership, but I'm exaggerating to make the point, right? You're very good at what you do, right? And now you're leading people. First of all, you're going to have to learn to delegate. And that's one of the biggest difficulties of this transition between an individual contributor to a manager to leader of people, is that the same behaviors are not applicable anymore, right? You cannot say, "Hey, let me do everything. Let me centralize this. Let me be a micromanager," right? You're going to have to delegate. You're going to have to understand how to build capabilities and skills in others. And surprise, surprise, these others may not do things exactly like you do. They have different backgrounds, personalities, strengths, weaknesses. Some of them complement yours. Some of them conflict with yours. So it's a big challenge, and most people are not developed to become managers and leaders. Maybe a little training here and there, maybe a book here and there. And a lot of people, they want the titles, they want the recognitions, they want the salaries, they want the LinkedIn update, but they don't want the responsibilities associated with being leaders. The responsibilities developing others, the responsibilities with the corporation, the headaches associated with it too, and sometimes the frustrations. And in the end of the day, all the recognitions go to the team, not to you. If you see a leader using the word I do this, I did that, you see some messages, some posts, some emails, some speeches that a CEO, a leader use the word I a lot. I don't know. I have a hard time with that, because it's about you. You did this, you did that. And the CEO, the leader, at best facilitates by getting a direction, getting a strategy very clear, and creating an environment that people can be the best versions of themselves. And ideally removing obstacles, right? Because there are going to be several obstacles on the way, right? That's the role of the leader. Direction, removing obstacles, building a team, and creating a culture that these people can be the best versions of themselves. Very easy to say, very hard to execute.
100%. And I think you said sometimes people don't want that responsibility. I think sometimes people don't even know that responsibility is going to be part of the new title. And I completely agree. People getting promoted, you're great at what you do, and then they don't realize with that promotion and the money and the new title comes a lot of different skills and responsibilities that they've never done, and sometimes they're not being taught. And it doesn't mean anything's gone wrong. There's an opportunity now to learn. That's often when I come into a company, is to support that. But you're so right, the delegating, thinking about your team and realizing everybody's different. You might learn in one way, and then you assume that your team member learns in the same way, and you say it once and they understand, and how to not micromanage when you're so passionate about what you do and you want it done a certain way. You're so right. It's easy to say, not easy to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's okay too at one point to say, you know what? This is not for me. I don't want to be a manager of a team. I don't want to, it's okay to say, I don't like to give negative feedback. Let's give a basic example. One of the things that I see a lot is that people only like to talk about promotions and salary increases, and they don't like the hard conversations on feedback. That's okay. It doesn't make you a bad person, right? But it's important to understand what type of person you are, what type of individual you are, because just because you're good at your doing doesn't mean that you're going to be a great manager, right? So those discussions, sometimes they are not very transparent, right? Because we associate in a very linear career trajectory that the better you are, more promotions you get, more people under you're going to get until you are the leader, the CEO, the whatever top of the pyramid, right? Who says that? Today, 2026 careers are moving in very, very different shapes and forms. And sometimes the highest paid is not the CEO. It's somebody else that's actually contributing to the business in a different way.
Yeah.
So we need to break a little bit these conventions and these paradigms that exist. They're old-fashioned, right? And very important, going back to being your authentic self. If your authentic self is not being a leader of a team because of your personality or whatever, that's okay. You don't need to be a leader of the team. Hopefully, you're going to find fulfillment, professional fulfillment, personal fulfillment, hopefully recognition and financial recognition by being your authentic self without having to force yourself to be and do something that you're not comfortable with.
You're so right. I mean, I think organizations are changing. In some organizations, to really climb and make more money, you do have to lead others. But like you're saying, it's not every company. And if that's where you are, you get to choose if you want to stay, and you get to choose if you want to learn to develop those skills. But being honest and noticing, what is my skill set? What do I want to be doing? And what comes with this new role is helpful before you end up in a role and then you're frustrated with, hey, all the things that I'm supposed to be doing, I really don't want to spend my time with.
And let's flip the script for a second, if I may.
Sure.
I also don't believe completely in this idea that this is not for me. I'm not a person to lead people. I'm shy. I don't like to provide feedback. I think it's an important moment to reassess your assumptions. Says who?
I agree.
Maybe that's a limiting belief that you're bringing with yourself. And maybe it's a good opportunity to challenge a bit yourself, getting out of the comfort zone, going back to personal growth for personal growth, right? So yes, you should be authentic to yourself, but also when challenges come, it's an opportunity to step back and say, I'm feeling these butterflies in my stomach. I'm feeling a little bit like uncomfortable. Welcome that as a potential growth opportunity. Not necessarily is a bad thing. When you are in your 30s, 20s, whatever age, even my age, if you're uncomfortable a little bit, don't go to this is not who I am automatically. So again, everything in life is about balance and nuance. Important to know who you are, but also important to leave it open for growth and learning opportunities.
I absolutely agree. How important do you think culture is to the success of an organization?
100%.
Tell me.
100%. I think that culture is what makes people come join you and stay with you, right? To begin with.
Yeah.
Right?
Because some people think, oh my God, I don't want to do the happy hours. I don't want to do all the things. Let's just focus and work.
Okay, but let's be very clear. This is a very small part of culture.
Talk more on that.
I think the opportunity is to actually, okay, what do you mean by culture? Because some people believe the culture is, tell me about your holiday policy, right? Or your happy hour. And for me, this is like an important percentage, but probably a small percentage. I think by culture is what are the behaviors that the company displays, not the PowerPoint, the behaviors, the actions, right? When it comes to promotion, when it comes to hiring, to firing, moments of crisis, right? The moment that you lose an account or revenue comes down, do you protect your team as much as you can, or you fire people at the first opportunity that you have, right? These are the things that start showing what kind of culture you have. Right? Do you celebrate, but also do you get together when things go bad? Do you support each other? Right? Do you have a collaborative environment? Do you have a curious environment? Right? Is in my realm of advertising agency, do you value creativity? Do you put creativity at the center of everything that you do, or you just want to make money no matter what? Right? Those are the things that, for me, shape what the culture of an organization is.
Yeah.
And when you are consistent about this culture, it's going to be so clear that people know what they're coming, joining, and know what they are staying in that type of company.
Totally.
And the interesting thing is that some people will say, I value culture as much as money, because people learn the intangibles. And culture is intangible. So when people come to me and say, Isaac, unfortunately, I'm leaving Alma, I'm resigning, I got a job offer. That happens, right? Sometimes, you get upset, but I care about the people, and when the opportunity is great, I'm happy for them. But I always ask, tell me more about where you're going to, how much money you're going to make, what title. But I ask, what's the culture? Who are you going to be working with? Who is your manager? Who is he? Who is she? How's the team? What do you know about the culture of the company? And you'll be surprised, Binie, how few people know how to answer these questions. They know the salary, they know the location, they know the title, maybe they know the clients they're going to be working with. Of course, they know the hiring manager, but the title and the name, they really don't do a good homework about the culture of the company they are joining.
And they really should, because you're so right. The salary obviously is great and important, and we all need to pay the bills. And a lot of us have big financial goals. But what makes you happy and fulfilled day in and day out is not the amount of money you make. It's how you feel when you walk through the doors.
The experts that studied that there's a salary high, right? That lasts probably less than 2 or 3 months. That means that excitement of the new title, the promotion, your salary disappears after 2 or 3 months, and now you're stuck in a company for many, many months or many, many years, or with a boss or in an environment that you may not like, right?
Yeah. I think for people listening, if you have a team or an organization, you could think about, like, how would people describe our team? You could ask others, and then you could think about, what do I want the culture of my team to look and feel like? What do I want people to experience us as, to keep the good people and to create that culture? And then you can intentionally take those actions and set the bar so that everybody follows through. As we think about being a leader, as leaders, we really impact the energy, the engagement, and the confidence of our team. What do you think leaders do, unintentionally, potentially, that either create buy-in and inspire people to show up as their best, or on the opposite, shut people down?
Transparency. I think constant communication. One thing that you learn as a leader is that sometimes the story is not very good, right? But you have to break the story anyway, and you have to explain where you're coming from. And you have to explain also what you know, what you don't know, because this idea that the CEO or the leader or the manager knows everything, this is not true. Sometimes you have partial information either, right? But very, very important is to be very, very transparent and honest. And sometimes transparent to say there are more that I cannot share with you. There is more confidential, or there is this, or there's that. And some of it I cannot disclosure today, right? So it's important not to I wouldn't say hide, but it's important to be very transparent of what you can share and share as frequent as possible, right? If you are an authentic leader, the team knows where you're coming from. Trust is built on being authentic, deliver on your word, being very straightforward and honest about the things that you're sharing. I'm very concerned about not over-promising. There's so much frustration created by over-promising and under-delivering. I rather under-promise and over-deliver on everything, every interaction. So I think that when there is passion, going back to this word, when there's an authentic self, when there is transparency, when there is a leadership that's based on serving others versus building your ego, most of the employees, they know who to follow. They know how to trust these leaders. And that happens organically, naturally.
That's a great point. Transparency and trust. And I think bringing people into the vision, letting them see what they're doing, the impact that it has, is super helpful. Switching gears, you wrote a book.
Yes.
What prompted you to write the book?
Okay, so I wrote this book called Hispanic Market Power. I have a plug here. It's available on Amazon.com. So as you mentioned in my introduction, I've been writing about the marketplace on Forbes for the past 8 years. It's a monthly column. They gave me this amazing opportunity. I'm very thankful for them. Actually, this week I wrote my article number 100.
Wow, congrats.
On Forbes. Thank you. It's unbelievable. And then during the COVID period, a lot of people told me, why don't you actually make these articles a book, use the articles as a foundation? People that I respect a lot. So I thought, you know what, let me investigate a little bit further. Of course, the first impression is trust your limiting beliefs and say, no, a book in English is not my first language, or I'm an economist. You always create the reasons why not to write the book. But I decided to investigate. I talked to some people that know me and wrote books before. I asked them, being honest with me, do you think I can write a book or assemble a book based on my articles? And all of them, they were unanimous to say yes. And one of these persons, my friend Chiqui Cartagena, I want to mention her by name, she not only said yes, but she said, I'll help you. So she became an editor that worked with me. She helped me moving from articles to book, because it was not only copy and paste. The book is a compilation of articles plus case studies plus original content that I wrote. So she helped me a lot. Without her help, probably the book wouldn't exist. So, and then, she helped me mapping out how to find a publisher, how to promote the book, because there are 3 distinct steps on writing a book. There is the writing the book, there is the publishing the book, and there's promoting the book. And there are 3 different stages. They are complete different from each other, that requires different planning and different skill sets. So that was an amazing experience in my life. I started in 2020 to 2021, and the book was published in 2023. And after that, an audiobook version came up, and now the book is going to come in Spanish. I don't know when, I don't have a date, but it's going to be coming here in the US and in Latin America and in Spain in Spanish soon. And at the personal level, helped me to see that sometimes the limiting beliefs and the obstacles are only in your mind, right? And it just gives me kind of the fuel to be the proper propeller of all the things that I may be blocking or afraid of or doubtful for in my career, my personal life, that I can achieve if I put the effort, if I'm surrounded by people that can help me. Which is another point, Binie, if I may. The book also helped me at the personal level. Because when the book was ready, I needed to promote the book, right? And here in Miami, I did the book signing. But how do you do that in other markets, right? So I remember that I posted a link on LinkedIn saying, guys, the book is out, etc. And I want to do book signings in other cities in the US. Anybody wants to help? I would never do that in my life before. I would never reach out and say, hey, I need help. Because I always, in my younger years, saw asking for help as a weakness. And today I saw how wrong I was, right? Because if you don't ask for help, how people will know that you need help? And second, who doesn't need help in anything in your life, right?
So true.
So this gentleman, Marco, he actually raised the hand, a person that I knew of, right? Marco Klein. He lives in Los Angeles. He raised the hand and say, I host you in my house in Los Angeles. I'll host it. I'll pay for cocktails, hors d'oeuvres. I'll have people here, strangers coming to my house for your book signing. And I said, why are you doing this to me? I barely know you. And he said, because I like your work. I like your work. I read the book. I want to help you. And we are friends until today. So the book is good. Business, the ego, it's good. But there is a story underlying the book for my personal growth that for me, that's the most important thing.
I love that.
And for that, I have significant gratitude.
It's so true. Setting big goals, like having a book and now going out to promote it, forces you to take the action to then go close the gap. And that's why I always say setting big goals that feel slightly out of your comfort zone and out of your reach are the best for you because they force you to expand to meet it.
Yes.
So let's talk for a second about time.
Yes.
Because you're obviously a busy CEO. You're also a husband. You're also a father of 2 children. Tell me how you think about time, whether you have any tips and tricks about how you schedule things. Maybe tell me about if there are things you choose to prioritize or not prioritize for the sake of managing all those things.
Absolutely. Prioritization is key. There is only 24 hours a day and I like to sleep. I like to sleep at least 7 hours per night. So in the end of the day, it's about trade-offs. Probably I'm not going to be able to have a good conversation about the latest streaming shows available. I didn't watch Game of Thrones. Sorry. The Breaking Bad, I didn't. The other ones of the zombies, I don't know. I didn't. I had to give up a lot on my streaming TV habits, to be very honest with you. And I'm not saying this like proudly.
You're honest. I appreciate it.
There was no time. And I like to read a lot.
Yeah.
I probably read 2 or 3 books per month.
Wow.
Right? So there's a moment that you have to prioritize. I still do some streaming, but very carefully curated by people that I trust. Maybe I watch a little bit here and there. The other thing that's very important is time with my kids. I have an 18-year-old and a 14-year-old, so I know that their time at home with me, it's limited, right? So it's very, very important for me spending time with them in a family environment, exercise, taking care of myself. So you learn a little bit some hacks. So for instance, after lunch at work, during the work days, I discovered that I can do a quick walk of 20 minutes around the block and come back, which is good for me because, I can eat relatively quickly, still be within my lunch hour, exercise a little bit. That after lunch walk is probably the best walk that you can have during the day. So there's a little bit of a hack. I'm lucky that I have a gym where I work in the same building. So I limited the time, the commuting time to go to a gym, right? My dentist is where I work too, right? And he's a great dentist, Dr. Sharp. So you look for little hacks that can minimize idle time. Always on a podcast when I drive. Yeah. Always trying to learn and listen something, trying to maximize the time that I have.
Yeah, maximizing the time that you have, being intentional with what you choose to trade off, because you're so right. There will be trade-offs, but if the trade-offs are TV, and you could look back over time and say, oh, I gave up TV, but I didn't give up time with my children who are now getting older, or time with my wife, or exercise, which keeps you healthy and vibrant, then you feel good when you look back.
Yeah. And also I think I was a little bit addicted to news. Now I'm still learning a lot about what's going on, but I have a few sources of news that are enough for me, right? I don't need to be on TV on a 24-hour cycle. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes I still get lost in the middle of scrolling on social media and funny videos, etc. But at least I have the sense of, gosh, what's going on, right? It's good for 5 minutes, etc. Then I go back to the real world.
Yeah, I feel the same. I'm not ashamed to say this. I don't read a lot of news. I don't want to be under a rock, but I always say, I'm not a politician. So if I'm spending my time and energy reading the news constantly, I'm not spending my time and energy on things that could actually get me further. So instead of reading the news, I'd rather listen to a podcast or read a book. And I'm not ashamed. I was talking to my brother the other day and he asked me my opinion on something. And I said, I actually don't have an opinion because I didn't read about such and such because it doesn't matter to me.
Well, for me, I do care a lot about where I come from, but I have a few sources that I trust and they are enough, right? And I think that's the important thing is if that's something important for you,
that's okay.
Spending time, just be careful with the sources if they are trustworthy, if it's something that, where it's coming from. Otherwise, you consume it from everywhere. And I don't think that's a very efficient way to manage my time.
Yeah. Just knowing what those priorities are to you. That could be news, that could be TV, but realizing there are 24 hours in the day. And if you're doing a lot of that, you might not be advancing your career as much or spending as much time with your kids. So it's just a series of decisions, which it sounds like you've been intentional with, which has gotten you to where you are today.
Yep.
So wrapping up, let's do a couple of rapid fire questions.
Let's go.
So what would you say is your favorite book, the book that left the most of a mark on you?
Oh, man. It's very hard. I'm let's say recently, I read this book by David Emerald called The Empowerment Dynamic, TED, T-E-D, The Empowerment Dynamic. It's a transformational book about how people see change and how see their role as proactive versus reactive, from victim to creator. It's a book that's based on the word of another psychologist called it's gonna come back to me, the name of the original work. So David Emerald created this theory of how do you move yourself out of the victimhood, that the world is here to get you, they're persecutors, etc., and move to a creative. The work is developed on the work of the psychologist called Karpman. Karpman developed this drama triangle of victim, persecutor, and rescuer. And Emerald, who passed away last year, evolved to the transition from victim to creator, persecutor to challenger, and rescuer to coach. It's an amazing book. It's a book written in a novel type of storytelling. So it's a very easy reading. And sorry, it's not a fire chat. There was a long answer, but it's a very interesting book.
That is interesting. And that's getting out of victimhood and moving through the different levels of energy is actually a big part of the coaching that I do. So I love that you said that. What would you say is one thing that you can't live without?
My kids.
Good one.
Yeah. In a more philosophical way, knowledge, learning, maybe books, new ideas. Spirituality is very important to me too. Friends. In a more mundane way, I love soccer. So I'm very excited about the World Cup. But, I try to have very simple habits, hopefully not material ones. I think that's the important thing.
Love that. So it's a good mix.
Yeah.
And what would you say is the best piece of advice you've gotten or great advice that you want to leave the audience with?
I think it's a little bit of what we discuss here about being yourself, not try to pretend to be somebody else, be authentic. I think that's the best advice. I think it's a simple advice, but it requires a lot of self-awareness. So probably there is a second advice related to that, which is try to learn about yourself in a very honest way, without filters and without judgment too, because we can be harsh on ourselves. I think that would be the best advice, that I think the younger you know who you are, the more benefits you're going to have in your personal and in your professional life.
That's such a good one. And I think in today's day and age, it's difficult with so much from social media and even podcasts. And I think just add a tip to that. If you want to get to know yourself more, spend more time in stillness. If you take more walks without the podcast or without the music or without being on social media, you can get to know yourself more.
Absolutely.
And then what does having it all mean to you?
For me, it's a combination of looking to where you are today and looking backwards and have a sense of you have evolved, you have progressed, you have changed for better. I don't think it's about being perfect. And then from the point that you are moving forward, continue to have this sense of learning and improving and a sense of betterment at the personal perspective. I think you never have it all.
Yeah.
It's almost a photography of the moment and the sense of, are you better today than you were yesterday? And are you aspiring to be better tomorrow than you are today? I think that's the concept of having it all.
Constant growth. I love that. Where can everyone find you, connect with you, buy your book?
The book, Hispanic Market Power, is on Amazon. You can check there. And I'm on LinkedIn for professional reasons. You can Google me for my Forbes article. There are 100 articles out there about multicultural marketing. Alma Advertising, amazing multicultural agency here from Miami, Florida, almaad.com. I think that's good enough.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for the invitation, Binie. I had a great time.
Thanks for listening to Have It All. If you love the show, share this episode with a friend, subscribe to the show, or leave a review. And if you're ready for your next level in your career, business, leadership, or life, or you want to inspire your team, you can connect with me using the links below. I'll see you next time.